And rising, beautiful souls. Hope everybody is doing well. So, waiting for Pam to join us because we want to talk about the shadow and the ego. And I think this kind of emerged or came about just because we're looking for individuals to collaborate with, or people come and say, "Hey, you should be on our show," or you get these invites from people who want to grow their audience and then want to help others grow their audience. And um basically got an invite from someone who is a lot younger, and that doesn't mean anything. Age is not a thing, but definitely don't think it's our demographic for sure. Can tell this young girl is probably good for people who are maybe in their teens, just getting out of teens, and maybe perhaps, yeah, just maybe perhaps going
College years.
college years, maybe, yeah, just kind of trying to figure out their life, and and move up, and we were thinking a lot of like how social media glorifies the ego part
Mm,
of ourselves. And so it's kind of like we put ourselves on display. And I was talking to some fellow peers the other day about that, and how we sort of become a commodity. And and we have to, because that's the way that, I guess, we'll say capitalism works, right? It's like,
mhm,
I was talking to one of the professors, and he made a really good point. He's like, things can't stop until everything becomes a commodity, and then it's for sale. And that's kind
mm,
of what social media has done. And it's which makes it very difficult for me to not go to social media and see nothing but egos and commodities and people selling their self. And usually it's looks.
mm.
Typically it's looks. I mean, that's what they're selling, right? They're selling look, because that's what we see on social media.
Right,
So
a brand. They make themselves a
yeah,
brand. Yeah,
a brand, or
yeah,
they're selling their self. It's a brand for one, but also it's an image, it's a mirage.
right.
It's not, it's this facade.
Mm,
It's just this fake.
acting.
Yeah, it's just this like and then in the background we don't really authentically know what's happening in this person's life, right? We just see this person that comes up and everything's so wonderful and beautiful, and na, 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 and then people, "Oh, well, you're so beautiful and you're so," they think that that's the life they want. I mean, this has been played out for years and years. Like, this is nothing new, but it's so in our face
Right.
with social media, with individuals. And I think that brought up the shadow ego issue, where it's like, I know for me personally, I stepped away from actually doing the live videos with my face on it because of that. Like, e- I used to do it all the time. I would wake up every single day. And what I saw, because when you're doing a live video with yourself, and as you'll see on these reels, on these TikToks, it's the person talking to themselves.
Mm.
When they're looking in the camera, they're not seeing you, they're seeing themselves. And that and that
It's true.
it is true, and it's
Yeah.
crazy because
It's an imaginary world you're just picturing. I mean, same thing even with
but
this, like, in a way.
and if you notice that they're looking at the cameras, especially the ones that are maybe kind of self-absorbed and wanna look good and are trying to say, "Hey, look at me," you'll notice how they look into the camera, and people think they're looking at them, and they're not. Remember, who they're looking at in that image is themselves. So that's really who they're looking at when they're doing these things, which is, to me, is a trip. And I did it for so long, and this is like the whole psychology behind it, because I looked at myself in the camera for so long, Monday through Friday, every single day, Monday through Friday, live. I was looking at myself in the camera, and eventually I saw this ego emerge, kind of the shadow of like vanity in some
Mhm.
way. That's what I would say. I'd say that
Yeah.
it's vanity.
Makes
Um, and it became this thing of vanity. And then, like I was telling Pam earlier, like, I was like, "Am I doing this because" like, I was doing it because I wanted to give back, but then I was like, "Are people listening to me? Are they?" Because you get comments like, "You're so beautiful," this and that and the other, and then, you kinda get caught up in that, and you're like, "Oh, I'm beautiful," and then it's like, "Oh," and then the likes, and then it's all this stuff started going through my head, and I'm like, "That is not why I started this. Like, where is this going?" They're showing up, yes, maybe they like the stuff I'm saying and people truly wanted to follow me, but were they following me or this image of me,
Right.
you know?
But that's how it's created too. I mean, you just played into the
Yep,
system, how it's played, the
I
game.
did.
Yeah.
Totally, totally. And so it was just funny this morning, we were watching this girl and I'm like, "Ugh," and that's how come I can see it. That's why I can see it because I saw it in myself when I was looking in the camera. So, I don't think that we ever contemplate or think about the fact that when people are actually doing their own TikTok videos and they're doing all of these videos, unless someone's recording from the side and it's on the outside, if they're facing the camera, they're looking at themselves.
Right.
That's who they're looking at, and that's to me, that's a very I don't know what you would call it, vain?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if there's even a word for it.
Yeah, because I don't really know. Like I'm trying to like put myself in that place and like what would that feel like or right, what kind of energy. I mean, it's gotta be in a way, I think it's just like a false sense of empowerment. You know what I mean? When you're
Mhm,
just kind of yeah, that's where the ego is like all like fluffed up and everything, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm, mhm,
like you
mhm,
can
mhm.
have the confident high head and
Yep, yep,
chest
yep,
pushed out and all,
yep,
shoulders
yep,
squared back.
yep,
Um because right, it's this false sense of admiration or
mhm,
something. You think
mhm,
all these
mhm.
people care about you or like you or whatever. Like yeah, it
Mhm,
is weird. And I saw something the other day about a newer singer or something. I don't know. I've never honestly listened to any of her music. Um but how she told her fans pretty much like I'm not going to hug you. I'm not going to take pictures with you or something and it's weird. It's weird you think you're entitled to this aspect of me and you think celebrities because you listen to their art.
mm,
Um, so I thought that was kind of cool in a sense of like taking a stand
mhm,
against the cultural
uh-huh, uh-huh,
like
uh-huh.
invasiveness of
Yep,
whatever. But again, celebrity is that part of that game in that system where
that's correct.
it's like it's not we were talking about in one episode the American dream and how it used to just
Mhm,
right having a house and a car and a family, and now it's like the American dream is to be a celebrity, to be a social media influencer, for younger generation at least, YouTuber. Which is crazy to me. I can't imagine. Like
I
I
know.
get taking it and adding it as a piece of your business, like we have tried to do, right? We're trying to figure out marketing and all of those things and right playing the game, but I'm not going to trade in my soul, um, or the authenticity of who I am, um, to get likes or to put out a fake image. And that's what I like about us embracing like shadow and saying, you have to show the dark moments, you have to show the struggles and challenges. Um, because if not,
Absolutely.
it's just the fakeness. It's just a mask.
True. And, I think to me, here's where I get sort of like I agree with that person who is maybe famous or whatever, but I also say you did sign up for it.
Right.
That's like you said, that is the job, and I used to contemplate that shadow side of that because most people think they want fame. Most people think that I think that we romanticize certain things, and I think fame is one of them, right?
Mm.
Romanticize it, and we think that it's this beautiful thing, but people, especially quote unquote stars, or these people who everybody puts on a pedestal, these actors and actresses and singers and entertainment people that they put on this pedestal. It's like they don't know who truly wants to be around them because they care
Mm,
about them. And that's probably, like, for me, that was the biggest thing in my journey, because I have this natural ability to entertain. If you're around me, you're going to be entertained. I'm an entertainer. I have this natural gift, right? Where being on stage, doing all this stuff. And at one point, I could have went down that route. I could have done Broadway. I'm not saying I would have been famous or anything like that, but I could have gone down that route of entertainment. And why didn't I? Well, because I understood that I would be giving up my connection to authenticity, to real connection, to people that truly love me for me. And I didn't want to give that up. And that's like kind of selling your soul, is what you're saying in some
mm,
ways, that we don't look at the shadow aspect or the ego aspect of this vanity thing. And I would just throw it in vanity, because that's really kind of what it is. And I've talked about this in my prayer podcast. um, Devil's Advocate. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but his
no.
last line, well, the last line, watch it. It's a trippy movie. And in the last line, he goes, "Vanity, my favorite sin." And, and yeah, and it's true, because vanity, it's a tricky one. We don't necessarily touch on, I think, as much as we should. A lot of it's about, sex and this and that and the other, but vanity is a huge topic, in which, and I could just be honest, they've captured so many souls just through vanity. Do you know
Mhm,
what I'm saying? And that's, I mean, think about it. People glorify these people based on looks. They glorify people, based on prestige, or you know what I mean, or what kind of cars they have, or what kind of beauty they're
mm,
existing in. If like, even think about it. You go on vacation and you post a picture that's beautiful. Everybody's like, "Ooh," they're just drawn by this beauty, and you know what I mean, and all this, and it's like smoky mirrors. They don't understand what's actually happening in the background either, that these people are living lives that are so on display. It's like the Hunger Games. They have no privacy. Everything's being on display, for entertainment, but in the background, things are miserable. And it was funny, because I watched this video the other day. It was like, it was about Justin Bieber. It was like, here's how Justin Bieber made million, or became a billionaire, by three moves that he made, right? Just three moves. They're showing all of these business moves he made, and all this stuff, right? And how he made all this money. And I mean, as a young kid, to have all that is, I mean, you could say great job, but we don't look at what the individual had to go through to get to that place. And literally, he was ripped to pieces. He was shred to pieces. That I guarantee you, if he could go back in time, all that money and all that fame, he probably would have traded it in to have a life that was fulfilling and authentic. So it's like, we just glorify things we don't understand. That there's this big shadow, like you said, our ego, that's just playing in the background, that we're not identifying and seeing. So it's pretty, it's just, it's really kind of crazy, to be honest with you, how humanity has sort of put these individuals on this iron throne, right? Or just have elevated them to just be these gods or goddesses or whatever it is. And we don't even understand what they're suffering from. Well,
mm.
and so I would say, like, that singer that you were talking about, it's like they aren't entitled. People aren't entitled to hug or sign, or they
Right,
don't have to. However, that's what the fans want. So then don't have fans.
right.
Do you see what I mean? Then
Yeah,
then
Yeah.
don't make money. Then don't make
Right.
money doing it. Do it because you just love doing it and not trying to be famous because that's what comes with it.
Absolutely. There's always the pros and the cons, and gotta outweigh
You know
the
what you're getting
benefit.
into. If you don't know what
Yeah.
you're getting into when you go into that, like, y you're just playing or something you have to understand what you're getting into when you're going into, you know,
Mm. Right. You're
act
definitely a puppet for a bigger industry.
exactly, exactly. Well, someone behind the scenes is pulling the strings and really making all the money too, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So
Definitely.
so I think that that's what you give up, you know what I mean? And it's funny because, I'm not big on stars and all that kind of stuff. It's not my jam. But I do notice that individuals um tend to think that they'd want to be in their position. I think most of America's like, if I could only, or I want to be famous, or oh, it'd be wonderful to be J Lo, or I don't know who the next person is. I don't know who people are ranting and raving about at this point. You know what I mean?
I have no idea.
J Lo, the only one I could think of. I don't know.
I don't know.
Or I
I
don't know.
honestly don't even know. Do they still do tabloids? I think. Yeah, they must in the grocery store. I don't even pay attention anymore. I just go straight for a self checkout.
I have no clue
Yeah. So to say, I know like back in the day, waiting in the grocery line, you're always bombarded. But
with the tabloids yet. No, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm sure they do. I see candy when I check out, so that's
I don't pay attention to anything. I have tunnel vision. Just get the heck out of my way so I can
I
get
think
out of
it's
this store. I hate
I
being
see
in a store.
candy, gum.
Oh,
I don't ever want any of that stuff because I don't eat that stuff.
yeah.
I see drinks. I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time at the grocery store, so I kinda know, but I guess I don't pay attention to tabloids probably because it's not in
Yeah.
my brain, but I do see the candy and I do see the gum. I know that's definitely at the checkout. That's what I noticed. They're like,
Yeah.
"Forget the tabloids. Let's keep everybody sick. Let's put junk food
Right.
at the front of the
And
store."
here's your diabetes aisle. All this sugar crap next to the sodas.
And they put it right at the front of the store because they're like, "Yeah, if they're hungry, we know
Yeah.
they're gonna get it," all the
Right.
marketing crap. Um, but yeah, the shadow. So, that's kind of I think where we started the shadow, conversation and the ego conversation.
Yeah.
So, I think with you guys that are listeners, hopefully you're listening. Hopefully we have listeners to this podcast, but I would say I know maybe nobody will listen. I'm hoping
See, we
somebody
only
does.
get certain numbers and statistics, so we don't know who's out there on any other of like the platforms. We just know kind of like the Podbean.
I know.
So, like,
It's
I think
true.
that's
People
our
want it.
benefit there, that it's just, in a sense, we don't have access to all of it. And if we do, we're not trying to figure it out. We're just like, let's go live and figure out a topic, and whoever's meant to hear it, will hear it. Um,
Exactly.
I'm
Which
not
is
going to spend the next 5 hours trying to shove it down everybody's throat. That's for sure.
I know. Please listen to me. Even
It's too
when I started,
exhausting. I
it
feel like
is,
the
but
social media, all of this stuff today, like promoting and branding and influencing, like, oh my God. Like, that's why it has to be 20-year-olds. We're all too tired. Like, we don't have, if you are married or have kids, like, you don't have time for that. Like, I don't know. Like, they're single
I mean,
parents. My goodness. Like,
they
I'm exhausted just doing all the jobs I have. I don't
it's
want to
true.
go spend time on freaking social media.
It's true, but there is this couple, so on Instagram, I think, there's this couple that I felt they're older and stuff, but I think the way that they do it is that is their job. Do you see what I'm saying?
How do you get
Like,
paid? I don't know. I guess I'm still confused. Like, I don't understand how you
sponsors
get rich off of
sponsors
having YouTube videos.
sponsors, and you get sponsors. That's so first of all, you get sponsors, and then so we're over here let's just talk about what we think we know because,
Well, if anyone wants to sponsor us, we're open.
so it's true. And if you want to sponsor my education, that would be great too.
Right?
Let's just throw that in there while we're at it. Um,
Sponsor
sponsorships
the
for
new
sure.
sugar daddies. I'm sorry.
Exactly. No, I know,
I'm
right?
sorry.
No, don't be sorry. When are we ever sorry on here? Sponsors, I know I know people get sponsors, and I think, one of my, peers was telling me that her cousin is a social media influencer and gets paid a whole lot of money to sell products, basically.
Yeah.
It's like the new marketing. So it's like a lot of these people will drop brand names and stuff like that. And so because they have a high following and they influence people, people will go out and buy the stuff they do. And I can tell you this. I know that this works. And I know that I had the ability to do the same thing because when I started my podcast and all that stuff, and it started getting traction and it started to grow, and it grew pretty quickly. Like people came on pretty quickly. Um, I would say stuff and people would ask me, "Where did you get that? What did you do?" People would go out and do stuff. So there was this ability to start influencing people's choice decisions.
Mm,
And so and so people so for instance, this is just a good example. When I went into nutrition, and they saw my journey, right? Because I did display my journey plus the podcast and stuff. So through the podcast, people were seeing that I was changing my entire lifestyle. And when I finally became a nutrition coach, which was later after I had built this sort of small following, it wasn't a huge following, but it was a small following. They they naturally were asking me about they wanted me to be their nutrition coach, basically. So it wasn't very hard to get clients based on the the, um, the audience that I had built, right? And so that and and it's good. I mean, it was a good thing because as nutrition coach, I was helping people lose weight, get healthy. And they understood that I could do it. They already knew that I could do it because they followed me through my journey. So, I mean, in a way, that was really good. That was a beautiful thing. I think that was, probably the most impactful thing that surfaced out of that.
mm.
If that makes sense. Like, I was
Oh,
able
yeah.
to help people with their health as a result of that, and so a lot of people came to me. Once I told them I was doing nutrition coaching, they had seen me go through this transformation in my life. They had followed my podcast, they understood what I was about. Then you get coaching clients and stuff like that, and that's how it works,
Right.
and there is this natural ability to draw in, and that's how you generate. But the problem for me, it's just an awkward topic to talk about because these are things that most people don't talk about authentically. But for me, I started to get so obsessed with numbers. And I started to be like, oh, I didn't get this many likes. And it started to like impact me, thinking that I had to get somebody to keep growing and growing and growing. But also, I was like, "Is that really what I wanna do with my life? Like, is that how I wanna serve humanity?" And I just saw my ego on display, like, it became an ego thing eventually, and I fed into exactly what it was designed to do, and I saw the reflection of that, and I was like, "I can't do this anymore," and so I stepped away. Now, the audio podcast that we do is very different, in the way that it's just vocal.
Mhm.
Right, and so because of that, it's not like people are seeing the image. Like, you
Right.
can see pictures of us and stuff like that, and that's fine, but they're not glorifying the image that they see. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Absolutely.
"Oh, well, can you just hear the voice?" They might glorify the tone of the voice, or they might say, "Well, I really like that tone, I really" you know,
Like that guy a couple weeks ago. Like
her
did too
voice
much.
is her voice is so soothing, or, Pam's voice is so soothing, Natalie's voice is so soothing, I really like their voices, you know? No? It's like but, like
No, I
I
know
mean,
what you mean. Cause well, that was the thing for me, I think, when I was trying the whole Glinda School of Alchemy, right? Like towards the end of our master's degree. And I knew, okay, I want to go into like coaching. I don't want to be a clinical psychologist. And I was, I was trying to like navigate new terrain and just find that path for me. Um, and so creating like the YouTube account that I created, and my goal was, and when I was setting it up, are these are going to be videos that when I get clients and I work with them, I can just give them access, right? It doesn't need to be out there for like the whole world to see them, but it's at least somewhere I can have something. And I mean, I remember doing the same thing, like the makeup, the hair. If you look at the first couple of videos that I have on there, I remember doing like 2 or 3 recordings in a day. So I like switched tops to make it look like, you know what I mean? I did like a wardrobe change. But then I would have anxiety. Like I would pre-record it to upload it. But I couldn't get through the first minute. Like the first opening intro was the hardest. And I would stumble and I'd be like, no, not good enough. Delete and like do it over. So I was spending like 4 hours just like getting to the point where I finally could have the like confidence to just like follow through with the freaking video and then like call it good and upload it. Um, and then it's like today where I'm at now, I've done some live oracle readings for our Facebook page when I'm, at the metaphysical store and I'm waiting on customers or whatnot, or just have free time. I'll do it from that studio space. But I'm just how I am for work. Like I don't, and I'm in a phase right now where I haven't really probably worn makeup more than a handful of occasions in the past year or so. So like you're talking about with that vanity and looking back at yourself when you're, live or recording these things, I do not stare at myself. I am like, I put the card up and block me out. And then I notice like the eyes are like kind of darting everywhere because it's weird for me. Like I'm still not comfortable and confident. Well, I mean, I feel confident, but like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to stare at myself. But I'll at least do it without, the makeup and the wardrobe crap. Like I don't care. Because you're right. It's about the content, it's about what you're giving back, it's about what you're putting out there. So if someone's scrolling through and wants to stop and just judge me based on my top or lack of makeup, then whatever, that's on you. Um, I feel like you got to work with your own judgments. Why are you judging people? Like, it takes guts. It takes to kind of come from a certain space, right? And to put yourself out there and become a target of, people's criticisms, judgments, because it is like there's this, people think they know you or they have a right to judge you based on what they see, but they have no idea what it takes to get there, to create that like 2-minute video or 20-minute video or whatever. So I've definitely have had the past few years of my own healing process stepping into that space.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely correct. It does take a lot to get there and to put yourself out there and to be, be seen and on display. So there's like this dual aspect, I think, too,
Mm.
because it's like there's these people who are overly confident and sometimes don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Oh my God.
Which is awesome. It's like, go for it, get it out there. And then there's people who are too afraid that they're not going to know what they're talking about and are too timid, don't want to be on display. And it takes them a lot to be put out there. But if you see the process, regardless of what direction you're coming from, it's rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen because I can tell you that I came to some of my podcasts eventually and I told people I'm going to be authentic. I have no makeup. I don't care how I look. You guys can like me or not. And I literally would say that on my stuff, right? But more likely than not is that you have this container that has sort of it was designed for vanity.
Mm.
It was designed for that. That's how it was created. And so it's like you're gonna see more people showing up on their best, in their best suit, their best look, when they come to these things, not really understanding what's happening in the background. They're not seeing all of the, I don't know, the shadow side of it, right?
Imposter
The cha
syndrome.
Yeah. They're not seeing the shadow, they're not seeing the real individual, in their authentic self because it automatic like you said you changed several times. You didn't even wanna be seen in the same outfit because you wanted
Right.
people
Can't
to
have the
think you were
same
in a
video with the same like different videos with the same outfit.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so there's that too, and so it just makes it really, really difficult to it's hard when you're overly self-aware overly. I don't even know if there's such a thing. I'm gonna ask actually my professor, is there such a thing as overly self-aware? Like people that are like way too self-aware,
You're too
like
silly.
they're so self-aware that they
I
because
mean,
I
everything's on a spectrum. I
yeah.
think so. Like, right? If you're not
That's
self-aware at all, there's definitely those people.
it's true. And then you have the ones that are too self-aware. I don't know if it's too or overly would be a better way to look at it. Where boom, it hit me. I was like, holy crap, like I'm just like all ego right now. Like this is not where I started, but
Right.
somehow it morphed me into that.
So you know what
And
that
so
means?
what
I mean,
transcendence?
yeah, it's time for an ego death.
That's what I did. I killed it. I did. I
Right?
killed it. That's
That's
why I
what
stopped going
happens. That's the
live.
next stage in the evolutionary process of
Well,
developing.
that's right. And I
Ego
did.
death.
That's what I did. I freaking killed it. And that's why I cut off my Facebook and all the followers and all of the things. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah.
the only thing I have left because I was like, it has to die. But then I'm like, so now I'm in this phase of, you know, how do I bridge the gap between because shadow and ego are not bad things. They're functional,
Mm,
they have a purpose, you
right.
know,
It's never going to go
they
away. You can't ever get rid of one of them. I think people like sometimes think that, the ego or the
yeah.
shadow can like go away, not exist. That's just not possible.
Well, we don't even function that way. Like
Yeah.
we would be bored.
You need to integrate. You need to heal them and integrate so it's not coming from like the wounded
Oh my god. We would
aspect.
be so bored. Yeah, because we would be bored without the ego or the shadow. Life would just be boring for us. We wanna think about stuff. We wanna solve problems, like, we can't help ourselves. You know what I mean? If we were just, like, ego without shadow or ego, we would be like, I don't know, ants or,
Like the ants.
you know what I
No,
mean?
I get it. I wouldn't say I feel like a very mild, very, very mild existential crisis in my current transitional phase.
Uh-huh.
Along with the astrology of August, right? I think most of us can agree August has been pretty intense energetically, one way or another. Um, and I had this moment of I'm working around self-worth. And I think this is kind of comes into some of this stuff because, right, you were talking about like commodity and vanity. I mean,
Mhm,
all of
mhm,
that eventually it impacts your self-worth.
mhm,
You see yourself as valuable. Um, but anyways, so I've been dealing with that in my own instances in my own life. And it was this moment of like the ego just kind of I'll kind of have these arguments with the universe where I'll be like, what the hell? Like, this is
mhm,
really, what you created for me. This is really like, I didn't sign up for this. But then I know like my soul made a lot of contracts to
mhm,
deal with a lot of karma and a lot of stuff. Right. So I know
mhm,
that's not true. And so this is where the internal part is like in all of its like aspects and sections of division is like pointing fingers like, no, I didn't sign up. I don't agree. It's null, it's void. I want, my worth knows that I can create and I can manifest, something
mhm,
better, something more that's more in alignment with where I'm at and where I'm going. And so I think it's just been like that frustration of some of the challenges of some of the life situations. My furnace, Mercury retrograde got my furnace again. So I spent a week dealing with that, and then they repaired one part only to, it not work and be like, oh, it's something else. So it's like, why do I have to keep dealing with this situation that reoccurs, that deals with finances and, you know what I mean, self-worth. And so yeah, it was just like the ego is like, I've had enough, like with the human aspect, with the soul aspect, like as a divine creator of consciousness, like let's transcend this narrative. Like I know my worth and my value, and I'm not gonna, get all freaked out by financial challenges. So it's those kind of themes and key situations, that come up and trigger the ego, that triggers the shadow. It's like, how are you going to navigate through this? How are you going to use wisdom and grow beyond it? Or are you going to just run on the hamster wheel the same exact, pace every time in a frantic mode? um, so yeah, I don't know. Like that's been kind of my most recent, I guess,
Mhm. Mhm, mhm.
way to
Yeah,
resonate with it.
yeah, I think so, and, I think self-worth also, because it's kind of funny if you look at it, it's like self-worth and then confidence and then vanity, maybe, I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's almost like you know what I mean? Because the confidence comes in, and then it's like this vanity sort of emerges,
Mm,
right? And 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 I'm not saying that it's all interconnected, but how do you integrate it too, right? Because if there were like stages, if you would say the shadow side, and I'm not even saying that that's what you were saying, but that just clicked to
right.
me, right?
No, no,
You
definitely.
talked about self-worth because self-worth then emerges confidence in individuals. And then when you're confident enough, you're out there doing your thing, the ego it has a function. Like it's not a bad thing,
Right.
but it's how do you recognize it and maneuver it, right? And keep it sort of in check as well, because
Mm,
it could just
grounding.
totally, yeah, it could just get away from you,
Yeah.
right? Completely. We know that's fire energy too, and we don't need fire spewed all over everything.
Right.
So in the shadow aspect of it, it's like how do you integrate it? I know integration's a buzzword that's been circulating in your world, in my world, and I think probably a lot of individuals' worlds are trying to figure out integration at this point, where we can integrate shadow ego into our lives, and still serve the soul, which is where we're headed, right? And use the ego as sort of the um sometimes it's the driver, not, and I don't mean the driver like it's driving, our bodies or whatever, but it is what moves us in some way. And so how do we integrate it, in a healthy way? Like you said, you were talking about wounded and not being wounded. And I'm in that phase where I'm like, okay, so if we go from self-worth to confidence to ego, I mean to vanity, which would then be like kind of like this ego side of it, and then we sever that. We say, "Okay, it's time." There's an ego death that came up, right? Especially for me, where I was like, "Done. I'm done with this." How do I come back? And I think this is what we were talking about the other day. There is something inside of me that has kept me from going live and putting my face out there because I understand how vanity and ego play a role in this. And then am I serving that? So how do I integrate it so that I'm serving self-worth and confidence to share, right? To share with the world, to share this information, but also to put my face out there and say, here I am again, showing up, with, authentically me, with myself. And maybe part of that is just like, well, I'm just going to show up the way I show up, meaning I don't, I'm gonna put on clothes and they're not gonna be, fancy clothes. And the people that wanna follow it will, and the people that don't won't, I don't know what it is. So it's just trying to figure out how to do that, in a world that glorifies vanity. I mean, we just glorify it to all means, to all ends. And that's what we do. We're constantly being thrown. First of all, the lifestyle, right? Everybody's lifestyle. You wanna have the best body, you wanna have the best looks, you wanna have the best cars, the best this, and there's displaying it out there as this thing, and then people are wanting or following those individuals who they're like, "Ooh, look at that shiny thing, look at how they look, I wanna look like them," and in their minds, they're trying to be these people, but they don't even understand what's happening in the background with these people. They don't know where their heart is. They don't know what type if are they good people? Do they care about people? Like, you know what I mean? All of that glamour and stuff like that doesn't determine the type of person they are.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And that's kind of
mhm,
what that singer was saying, like, "You don't know me. You're not entitled to know me." No, we don't. We don't. But you're putting it out there. You're displaying it for people to follow you. So then show up truly the way you are. Right? So
right.
how about J-Lo stop putting on makeup all the time and getting glamorous, and I know I've seen some of her stuff where she does it, stop getting Botox, stop doing all that stuff. Age gracefully, show us who you really are. They won't do that. That's not what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
There are very few people who are in that role, like Sarah Jessica Parker, I believe is her name, if I'm correct. I know her from Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, okay, because I watched
Oh,
that.
I love that movie as a
Yeah,
kid.
that was
Yeah.
my favorite
Hocus
to watch.
Pocus.
Hocus Pocus, right? So and, Sex in the City, okay, so but
Yeah, I never really got on board with that.
I did. She's actually, I think, aging gracefully, if I understand. The last that I saw, she was just like, "This is how I look. What do you want me to do?" Like, I'm not so there are some individuals who are like, "This is who I am."
Mm,
But then again, do we glorify them the way that we glorify these other individuals? These
right.
people are not they're not putting their real self out there. They're putting an image out there. We don't know who they are as people. We don't live with them. We don't know how they treat people. We don't know how they treat their family. We don't know how they, and we glorify the vanity. And that to me is kind of like it's cool if you wanna do that, but for me and this is why it's hard for me is because I don't want people to glorify me for anything, period. I don't want for my looks, for my anything. I'm just a human being trying to support individuals. I want to serve humanity in a s
Mm,
in a certain way. You know what I mean? If people think I'm beautiful, great, that's cool, whatever, but that doesn't mean anything.
right.
That has no meaning. How I treat people, that's what I want people to ask. Well, how are you treating people? Not how do I look? Do you know what I mean? It's just so I just it's hard. That's why I talked about is there this thing about being too self-aware or overly self-aware or whatever it is, you know?
I don't think so. I feel like people need more self-awareness.
To sabotage. So, but I think there's this healthy integration. So that's kind of where
I
I'm
agree
at.
with that. Yeah. Because if
And
not,
and
the
and
ego gets inflated and infatuated with itself. And I think that's where we, coming back in a way full circle with the shadow, I think it's our viewpoint of self love and narcissism of the ego, right? Like
mm,
that is kind of distorted as well because
mm,
those wounded aspects of just loving yourself so much, but yet a lot of people like that Joan, they have wounds that they're covering up, so it's even a false sense of security and
mm,
confidence.
mhm,
um
mm, mhm, mhm,
but
mm.
but the shadow, yeah, it's really interesting how it can kind of hide within the ego.
Oh, for
And
sure.
just like, yeah. And I keep thinking of like Leo, like the zodiac, Leo, the lions, like
Uh-huh.
a
Yep.
really wounded, they
Yep.
get some, they get some slack for sure for being so prideful and boastful. But I think that just kind of comes to mind as like a symbol.
Yeah, oh, no. It's true. As soon
The
as I
pride
see
of the
ego, I see
lion.
Leo. No, as soon as I see ego, I see Leo, right? That's
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
a
Like,
fire
sorry,
energy and
sorry to the Leos out there. Nothing against you.
it's I
Like,
think they know. That's
right. Oh
and
yeah,
that's
they
the
know.
thing is not all of
You
them,
know
but
the stuff about your sign. You know. I'm a
yeah. Well,
Pisces, man. I know. I get it.
I think that the Leos, most of them know. I know that I have Leos in my life and they know. But I'm not saying all
Yeah,
of them are self-aware either, because it's just a human thing, but they understand that piece and
right,
they know it, right?
right.
Um,
But it's
so
not
but
bad to have self-love. Like, it doesn't make you a
no,
narcissist. It's not even actually what a narcissist is. And so, like,
correct,
that it to me is ironic and funny. I feel like it's a mask
for
cover
sure.
for true narcissists to
For sure.
get, to slide under the radar because they're like, no, that's not what I am.
Yeah, exactly.
But we need self-love. We need self-worth and self-care. Like, that doesn't give you a big ego when you put yourself first, like that's what we should be doing is standing in our own power and recognizing that at the end of the day it's our own relationship with ourself. Other people are going to come and go in your life, but it's always going to be you. Like, you're always going to be in a relationship with you. And
Absolutely.
if you're always running away from really looking at who you are, like if you can't sit in stillness and really truly look at your reflection and look deep in your eyes, to me, that's a huge thing too. If someone can't look in the mirror in their eyes, I have realized that's because they can't steal to look at their own darkness. So
Mm,
they kind of run from that. Um, but there's nothing wrong with you said about integrating and finding a balance and having a little bit of ego that says, like, yeah, I know I have value, like I know I'm creating a life of meaning and giving back and helping people, right? Because that's another thing I think with like influencers and gurus and coaches and teachers, like I would say, look at how they're marketing. Are
mhm.
they saying like they're going to do it for you? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like that's a red flag to me. We are capable, and only us are capable of like our own power within. And anyone else, I think that's where you're giving your power away to them, thinking they're going to fix you, that they have the power to give you the body you want, right? To give you the relationship you want. And it's not in the power of other people's hands. Like, they might have wisdom and guidance and techniques to use to help you, but it's all from within. You should be finding your own power to create those things for yourself. Um, so I don't know. I guess that's where I get kind of irritated on people who just want to profit off of you by promising to give you everything. I don't know. Because I see a lot of people that don't have power. They come in, they have all these questions, and they want you. Like, there's so many people walking out in the world that just don't have a sense of empowerment. And
Mhm.
they want everyone else to fix it for them, solve it for
Mhm.
them, give it to
Mhm.
them. And
Mhm.
that's a good way to tell right there where people are navigating at. Like,
Correct.
you have to empower yourself.
Absolutely. It's an
Yeah.
internal job. We can
Yeah.
only provide tools, and I talked a lot about that on former podcasts about how you follow people. Who do you follow? Why are you
Mm,
following them? What are they telling you? And I think those are all really good questions. Are they telling you, I have the ultimate way, follow me and you'll find everything? No, that's just like run the opposite direction.
mm,
Nobody at this point, I can tell you this right now, from an academic perspective, it's academic. I'm gonna preface it first and tell you where it's coming from. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Most of our information, and I was talking about this with my sister, all of our information or any major change that happens in the world comes from academia. It comes from these professors, these PhD level people, these people that go and they change something in the narrative. And that narrative then gets trickled down. And people don't realize that. And I can tell you from the academic perspective, nobody knows what the hell's going on. Nobody. And no human knows what the hell is going on. So when someone says they know, I will run the opposite direction. I'm like, what do you think you know? You might know. There are things they could know. They know their own experience. They know their own life. They know their own perception. They know what they've gone through. That's it. That's all we can ever, and it doesn't matter what you do, and this is something that we're learning, right, in consciousness studies right now, and it's something that I've talked about a lot. But if you're taking it into consciousness studies, if we're taking it into where that academia is going with consciousness and self-awareness, and what they're looking at is that at the end of the day, all of those scientists are saying we can never know because you can't. There's absolutely no way to know. There are different ways and techniques and strategies that you can apply to your life that can support you, but I don't know what that would be. And I think that that's the biggest thing for individuals to understand, because even like I know even with Pam and I, and this is exactly why we're business partners, because we understand that we don't have the answers for you. No one does. Nobody has the answers. You have the answers for you. Period. And then you have to take that for yourself and figure it out. Nobody can do that for you either. So we can provide tools, and people can give you tools and provide you tools, but like I always tell people, if people are saying, "Oh, I'm the guru, I'm the one who can save you, I can give you this, I can give you that." No. Only you can give that to yourself. And you deserve it and you're worthy of it. And that's the big key, right? Is understanding that you are no different from these gurus. There is no separation from these individuals. You are them and they are you, and so you have that ability and power internally within yourself. And so it's understanding that. And so for me, I think with the shadow, and something that you were talking about, is that breaking away of that false sense of self, which I think we play under and we don't realize it until we're peeling back the layers, right? And we open it up, because I would say that, like, in the scenario that we've been talking about, of this vanity, this facade, this thing that you're creating that's not real, that it's this shell of a thing, and then at the internal, is the true individual breaking free from that. And I think that I didn't even realize, like you said, people go around, don't even realize. You don't realize unless you're self-aware when the ego is actually playing, and the ego shadow, very tricky. They're very tricky. I would almost say that, the shadow shows up as the trickster archetype a lot. And
Mhm.
you know what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying? And
The
and
trickster
you're
loves
like,
to be in the
"Whoa."
shadows.
I know, it's like, that's, you know what I mean? And you're like, "Whoa, I didn't." And that's what happened, I think, to me too. I was like, "Oh my god, like, I'm
Yeah.
totally operating from ego right now." And I thought it was good, and I was like, "No." And then it was like, "Okay, so if I'm gonna do this, the integration is the breaking the shell of that, and then stepping through kind of this veil, and then re-emerging
Mm,
as this new thing that's like, okay, well, what is it then? Who do I get to be in this new body, this new way of thinking, this new emerging consciousness? How do I I broke through this ego barrier, killed off the old ego,
mm.
and recreating this whole new thing. And it's almost like a new identity in some ways,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Um, but where's the integration? So, I do wanna do lives. I do. I really enjoy it. I enjoy getting on there. I enjoy sharing information. I enjoy that. I do like that people get to see me as a person because they know I'm real. Like, that
Mm,
part is okay. The glorification of it is the part that I'm like, I don't think something goes internally wrong with me when it's like people are starting to glorify, because I'm like, they're missing it. They're missing the message behind it, which
mm,
then kind of spirals me, if that makes sense. So it's kind of weird. It's this weird thing that I'm in, right? I don't
mm,
want people glorifying me. I don't want that.
mm. Well, I think the integration part piece too, that like that's key is where you're talking about like death and rebirth. So you're letting go of like the layers of you that, right, like that were egoic with looking at numbers, looking at, right, the statistic part of it, like how have I gone up today? um and then just embodying from where you are now at that authentic place of knowing, like, clearly it's a passion, it's an interest, it's something you want to do to give back, right? So it's just kind of letting go, and so not looking at the numbers, not looking. And then I guess with the glorification, like, I don't know, because like I just feel like I'm corny and cheesy. So I feel like people are just laughing at my stuff.
They're not.
Like, that's what, so I guess, like, it's hard for me to think about glorification, because I'm like, man, people are like, look at this dumbass. What is
No,
this
they're
chick
not.
doing? And they're just like,
Absolutely not.
scroll past.
Uh-uh. Mm-mm.
So I
Mm-mm.
guess I'm not there, but I'm just trying. Like, I just posted. I'm like, I don't care. You know what I mean? It's posted. It's done. And then I'm not attached to it anymore. Like, I'm not attached to the outcome. I have no expectations. I'm not expecting anything to go viral. I'm not expecting, comments
Sure.
so I think it's just maybe following through with your own intention, using the wisdom you've gained from your experiences, and then just figuring out what that looks and feels like now to navigate it from this peaceful place, that's authentic, that can then just walk away and know your content's there.
Yep.
um I
It
know
started
it's,
off
yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
so I'll put you in check then. I'm here now. You can let me know, like, Pam, I'm looking at the numbers. I'll just be like, oh, did you see 1111, hun?
Yeah.
You seeing some good numbers, I hope, some triple
Oh,
digits.
I saw two people. Ah.
Right. But I know what you mean. And like, I've found myself looking at, like, oh, how many views, did this get, just out of curiosity, and then I let it go. Because I'm just curious if people are listening. I'm just I'm just hoping I'm like, it doesn't mean that they listened to the whole hour. Maybe they just listened to the first 5 seconds and was like, no, I'm done. Like, I don't know. So there's that part of me that just has to believe people are following through to the end, because they're enjoying our authentic content and having, some laughs with us, or gaining self-awareness, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing we're trying to do and help people with, is just maybe stop and reflect and have an aha moment.
Yeah.
But I know when you're talking about expanding consciousness and stuff for a minute there, I was thinking about my psilocybin journeys,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because I love shrooms, like, oh, like, there's nothing, just because it expands your consciousness, and it can be very healing as well, but it just provokes creativity and expansion. So I feel like every time I've done a retreat and come back, and because, again, I don't do it like in my house recreational, it's in a ceremonial retreat space. I feel like I gain new self awareness. I feel like I've gained more awareness of the universe at the macro. I see more of, like, the structure. I understand more of my life path. So that has been super beneficial to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I know it's something that people are being called towards, is reconnecting with psychedelics and sacred medicines,
Mhm. Mhm.
sacraments, of
Mhm.
plants and whatnot. So there are ways to heal and expand consciousness if you're called.
Absolutely. There's many, many ways to do that, and
Yeah.
that is one of the ways. And and hopefully it'll help to
Mhm.
break free of your
Illusions.
current ego. Because I mean, we go through ego deaths, doesn't, like I said, doesn't go away, but
Oh, no.
maybe this old ego, isn't serving you. I think those are things that you could think about, like,
Hmm.
is this current ego narrative serving me? If it's not, what would it take to break free from that? And
Hmm.
and if it's like, if I can break free from this, what tools do I need to kind of transcend, go through the process of it, and leave it there? And then in that space there are, you know, different ways that you can do that. Or you can say, go into a ceremony like that saying, give me the answers of what I need to do to kind of break from that ego.
Mm,
Or if you've already broken from it, you can say, what do I need to know as I move forward to
mm.
expand? So yeah, I mean, there's many ways though
Full
that you
moon
can.
is great for doing
Mhm.
some rituals and letting go. We just
Yeah.
had the super
Mhm.
blue, like crazy full
Yeah.
moon energy.
Yeah. It was
But that's a
beautiful.
good
Mhm.
way to do it where you're just connecting to nature and the elements, have a
Mhm.
fire, burn and let
Mhm.
go of some stuff. Yeah, so I
Absolutely.
agree. There's lots of ways. I think the biggest thing is catching the ego death, because
Correct.
some people don't understand what that really is, right? I think it's more surface level of my life is just in chaos. But if you
That's
can
correct.
recognize that you're in a structural pivotal moment of ego death,
Yep.
because like you said, it always happens. It happens in cycles. It happens in
Correct.
different areas of our life, for our own growth. So,
Yeah, and as the psychologist, right, the
mm,
psychoanalyst, of course, because I'm around in my PhD program and, you talk, they're
mm,
gonna analyze you, right? And then it was like, one of the professors, I was like, "And I just wanna do this, and da, da, da." He's like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "Oh, 44, whatever." He's like, "Yeah, it's about that time of life where you start." And I'm like,
the midlife
"What?"
crisis.
Stop doing that to me, or you're telling it's like a rites of passage, you know what I mean? I'm like, "I know," but I told him, "But I don't feel like I'm, 44, I feel like I'm 70 years old because, yes, I'm in this place that I wanna serve, but I'm also in the place where I don't give a shit,
Yeah.
and I just don't care. I
That's when
don't
they should have been
I'm
like, "You don't know me. I'm
I
menopausal," and just blame it on, right? Blame it on the ovaries.
It was just funny though, because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my god," like, everything I say is gonna be analyzed, right, by these people, right, and it's true because 'cause they've already he said another thing the other day, he's like, because he's a narrative psychologist, which is just, like, he's into the
Oh,
narrative and stuff,
that's
and
cool.
so I was talking and this and that, and I was like, I didn't get funding this time, and it's okay because the other guy got funding, whatever," and he's like, "Well, that's one narrative." He's like, "That's your narrative," and I was like, "Well, yeah, it is my narrative," and he's like, "Well, that's we would call that like a coping narrative, like, what did you
Oh
think to cope?" And
my
I
gosh.
told him, I said, "Well, you know what? It probably is a coping narrative, but guess what? It's serving me, so I'm happy with it." I told him, and he's like, "Well, that's good." I was like,
Oh. So judgment just evolves into
"Uh,
psychoanalysis, pretty
oh,
much?
yeah, for sure. It's like and so I'm around these and it's just funny, and then I'm talking, and here's what I love about the program. So I'm just kinda going off because I gotta talk about the program I'm in. You guys know I'm in a PhD program right now in consciousness and society. And so, these young guys are just very. Man, I'll tell you, they're very smart. I'm not I love not being the smartest person in the room, I'll tell you that. Like, these people are like I'm like, "What are you talking about?" But I'll be talking, right? And I'm like, "This and that and the other and this and that." And then they're like, "Wow, that sounds a lot like the theory of blah, 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 blah." And I'm like and I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "Well, you sound like Heidegger and like this and Kant kind of like mixed in together." And I'm like, I don't know where they're pulling this stuff out of their back pocket, right? Because I'll be honest with you and even to the audience is that I didn't read a whole lot of philosophy, or I just didn't. And there a lot of these students are like they're philosophical. They know a lot of philosophy. They talk about Plato, Aristotle, all this stuff. And it's not really the direction that I came into consciousness studies. Mine was more on alchemy, right? Manly P.
Mm.
Hall and all these people who were like what I mean? Aleister Crowley and like all the mystics, right? So they're talking and well, one of the guys knew a lot about Aleister Crowley, but like they just know their whole life. And I'm like, wow, you guys are like, it's crazy to me. But then they just kind of like want to categorize me in like,
Oh.
and they can't do it. It's like they can't grasp who I am.
Well, that's
So
good. Don't want to
oh
be
no,
categorized.
it's totally no, it's totally good. It's just funny is what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
that's the narrative that they bring back to me, you know what I mean?
right.
It's like,
How to
"Well, it sounds a lot like," and I'm like, "Oh," and I think some of the stuff that we've talked about, with these youngins is that they've been very academic, they're just name dropping all these people
Yeah.
and theories, and it's like, where's their own voice? They're
Right.
glorifying these people, and so a lot of them have told me, you know, "I really like how you have your own ideas and your own thoughts."
Right.
And I think a lot of it, and it's not my own, I wouldn't say it can't be my own, right, completely, because
Well,
I've
it's like
read.
your own individual alchemy,
That's
right?
correct.
And
That's correct.
that's what they've
That's
all just published as their own
That's correct.
alchemical
That's correct.
process.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly it, Pam, and that's why
Yeah.
obviously we get each other, because you get
Right.
that it is our own personal alchemy, and that people are so, again, we go back to this glorification of, and
Mm.
even myself, of glorifying these individuals who are creating the content, and these young kids, so maybe they're not, so in my academic world, they're not glorifying the stars, they're glorifying all of these people who were
Right.
thought leaders, and you know what I mean, instead of really finding out who they are, and they don't know who they are. And so it's kind of interesting, because at one point I thought I wasn't worthy enough to be at this level, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
thinking, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy enough, or I'm
Yeah.
not smart enough, or I'm this or that. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm here. So it
Right.
doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
It
It's going
doesn't
to help you
matter.
grow and evolve.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Who cares if I'm good enough or not? I know
Yeah.
I'm good enough for me. And, you guys either like me or you don't.
Right.
And if I don't understand something, I'm going to tell you I don't understand. And I think there was this fear of like, oh, they were going to see me as not worthy if I don't understand. No, I don't care.
Mm.
At
Yeah.
the
You
end
have
of
to
the
be
day,
on the
I'm at this
scene.
point. Yeah, that's where I say
Yeah.
I'm like a 7-year-old woman. I don't care. Like, I don't
Right.
care. I don't care if you like what I have to say. I don't care if you like what I publish or don't publish. I if you like my viewpoints or don't,
Right.
if the academia is
Absolutely.
like, "She's batshit crazy," I'm like, "Fine, I don't care. I don't care." So, it's this point where I'm just like, there's almost like this liberation and freedom, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well,
Because
it's
'Cause I'm
that
not trying
part of you being in a relationship with yourself, right? You're
to.
confident with who you are. Like, you don't
Mhm.
need to show up and prove yourself to anyone else. And my
Right.
problem, or not my problem, but I know my insecurity would be the fact that, like, oh, I read that somewhere, but I don't remember who. Like, oh yeah, I heard about that guy, but I don't remember their life. So like I can read it, but can I recall it word for word and like heck no. So I would probably be
You don't
trying to
have
like
to.
dig
You don't
around
have
in the
to.
brain and not connect
You
either.
you don't have to, because they know. I
Yeah.
told the guy this is what I
Yeah,
told the
so
guy.
I would feel inadequate just as much if like that was the case. But that's
I
what
don't feel
makes them
inadequate.
probably, again, from their ego perspective, how do they handle that being the
Yeah, I
smartest
don't
person in the room?
I don't feel inadequate. In
Yeah.
fact, I don't at all. And
Yeah.
what I do is I'm like strategic, right? Because this is the way my brain works, very strategic, is I'm like, okay, I know what I'm gonna do. So my thing is, hey, I'm gonna say a bunch of stuff, and then I want you to tell me where it fits in, and then go and read those people.
Oh man.
And then I'll decide if I agree or don't agree with them, because I probably don't agree with them.
That's great.
So
Oh,
who's the smartest person in the room? I don't know. I'm not smart, I'm strategic, you know what I mean? And then I think it's a
right.
strategy, but it's also having the curiosity. So I am adequate in other ways they're not, and they're adequate in ways that I'm not. You know what I
Right,
mean?
absolutely.
Feel inadequate because I don't feel inadequate. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. And like, for me, I'm like, wow, like, I love, actually, that I'm in a room full of people who are like that, because I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? And I could just sit there and listen, and I'm like, "Oh," and then when I pick up on their conversation, I'm like, "Oh, here's how I see the world." And then there's all these connected things that they can't make sense of. They're trying to say, "Oh,
Mm.
well, it's this, or it's that, or it's this, or it's this, or it reminds me of this and this and this," and they're giving me all these different people it reminds them of. But
Mm.
again, It's my own alchemy,
Right.
which is complete, and that's what's needed in the world, and this is why I chose the program because innovation is what's needed. We need
Mhm.
to think things differently. We can't
Right.
be stuck in the dialogue of these people that came before us, but we do have to honor what came before us and understand it. And so I'm the person who is like innovative, but needs to understand the historical context in which my own thought process emerged too.
Mhm.
Because I did read a bunch of different things, but do I recall where or when or how or
Right.
who? No, because I didn't care about them. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about what I'm trying to figure out what I think is, you
Yeah.
know, so or how I can best serve humanity and who I am and how I'm going to show up in the world, and the legacy that I want to leave in the world is what's important. What legacy am I going to leave, which is a legacy of wisdom, as you know.
Right.
And then but it's been and I know we're way over, but it's been so fun, to have these dialogues with these individuals and just even to I think in the past, my ego would have felt bruised, and it doesn't. It's like I'm excited to be around these young individuals who are so, um, versed and me with a caring heart. There was one of the students, he after we had the conversation and I told him, "Man, you name drop, like, you got all the names, don't you?" And he was like, "Oh, sometimes I worry." Well, he didn't tell me this at first. He was just, this person, it reminds me of this theory and that guy and this and this and this. And I came home and I thought, where is he in all this? Like, where is his, like, is he okay? Like, that's all I care about, right? Like, I have a big heart. So my heart is like, is this person okay? Because they're overthinking things. Then they're
Mm.
going home and being by themselves. And that's not a good place to be. Like, we need to be able to interconnect with individuals and people. And and then when I saw him the next day and stuff, when we talked, he said too, he's like, "Sometimes I just feel like because I told him, "You name drop." He's like, "Sometimes I feel like that's all I do. Like, I'm trying to figure out where my voice is." And I said, I told him, "I thought about you last night." And that's exactly what I thought. I
Mm.
thought, "Where is this young guy's voice in all of
Right.
this?"
Right. 'Cause you can do all the research, you can read about all the people and all the theories and all the things, but until you
Where is
find
you?
how you've lived the experience and that internal
That's
alchemy is
correct.
happening for you.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Then yeah, because that's what it is. And that's the biggest thing is that every single individual who has got to this point, professor, whatever, it is their alchemy. And if we saw the world that way, then we would understand that we have our own unique alchemic process. We
Mhm.
have our own unique way of transcending, of moving through these things, of because our experience and perception is uniquely
Mm.
distinct to us. There
Mhm.
is I cannot be Pam. Pam cannot be me. That'll never happen. I
Mm.
can never know what it's like to experience Pam's life
Mhm.
through her body, through her senses, just as she can never understand what it's like to live my life through my body, my senses. So, but each one of us has this capability of really understanding the world through our own lens and then giving back and serving
Mm.
humanity through our own special,
Right.
unique gifts.
And that's where
And it's
compassion and empathy
Mhm.
then come into play.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that too because last night I had my shadow class and I had a
Mhm.
few students that came. Um and that was one of the beginning things I talked about with shadow work is this alchemical like
Mhm.
transmutation process that you're really doing when you're dealing with ego and the shadow, the unconscious and inner child reparenting and wounds. And we all do that in different ways. So looking at how you get triggered and work through any challenges or healing your belief system and things you were conditioned by others that have now become part of your personality that aren't really natural or authentic. They're just survival mode or defense mechanism, all of those things. um, So to be able to sit in stillness and look at, yeah, your internal map and the way you navigate your things
Yep.
is so important, because that is your own soul guiding you through
Mhm.
a universal conscious stage of what we call alchemy, through
Absolutely.
steps and stages and all of the things. So
All the things
always
that can
interesting.
so good.
Yeah.
So we're way past time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
gotta go.
yeah, I know. So, um, I didn't say this at the beginning, but for those who stood to the end, which is a very long podcast, I don't know if people really listen this long. I'm not 100% sure if people do.
Right.
But you can follow us on Instagram, Women of Consciousness, on Facebook, at Women of Consciousness. There's a couple of them. We have the yin yang symbol. So I think if you go to our Instagram page and then follow us on Facebook, be easier. And then womenofconsciousness.com, which you can find the links to both as well. And we are putting on goddess circles in September. So please be on the lookout for that. It's on Eventbrite. One of them is a virtual retreat. We're going to be talking about the tantric energy, sexual energy, which is really important to navigate. And then we have the goddess circle as well in September. So we have two dates coming up: September
20th,
19th, 20th, and
20th,
September
27th.
September 20th and September 27th. Thank you for keeping those dates straight. I know you are the date person. I know I can count on you to give me the dates. You know time. So there you go. So we love you. Have a fantastical day and we'll see you soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.